Like the time on ketamine when I discovered that I was God. And for 45 minutes, I went through this long dialogue with myself. Am I really God? Or am I a human being who's taken a drug that has so warped his brain that he thinks he's God?
I bet the last.
And, well, I found good arguments on both sides. And that 45 minutes seemed to take infinity rather than 45 minutes. So I spent more time in that 45 minutes. I had infinity in a grain of eternity in an hour, as Blake said. I had an eternity to contemplate the question, am I God or am I a human being imagining he's God? And it's very much like the old Buddhist parable about the monk who was about to achieve supreme enlightenment. And Mara the tempter killed him and turned him into a parrot so he couldn't achieve enlightenment. Parrots have such primitive brains. But the parrot flitted from tree to tree, and a Buddhist monk came through the jungle chanting the sutras, and the parrot heard, all things are impermanent, and started repeating it. All things are impermanent. All things are impermanent. And eventually mental activity began in the parrot was close to enlightenment. So Mara killed him again and had him reborn as an elephant, even further in the jungle, thinking that enlightenment couldn't possibly reach there. And some people came, captured the elephant, and sold him to a Maharaja, and kept him in the courtyard of the Maharaja's palace. And into the courtyard came a Buddhist monk, reciting the teachings, and the elephant heard all things are impermanent and started thinking about it. Pretty soon the elephant was close to enlightenment. So Mara, to destroy the chance of enlightenment again, killed the elephant, had him reborn as an American fundamentalist preacher. And where he seemed as far removed from enlightenment as humanly possible. And he went around the country preaching, you're all terrible sinners, but if you put enough money in the collection box, God will forgive you. And he got to be fabulously rich. $80 million a year, like Swaggart. $80 million a year, and he was as far from enlightenment as was possible. And then he met with some other clergy who were talking about sending missionaries to the Orient to teach the backward heathen the truths of Christianity. And they started discussing the superstitions of the backward Orientals, and one of them mentioned the Buddhist idea that all things are impermanent. And mental activity started in this fundamentalist, and he was close to enlightenment again. So Mara tried the final temptation, killed him, made him Maha-Brahm, greatest God. Maha-Brahm is the God who creates all the other gods, who create all the universes which become states of being for various lesser creatures. So Maha-Brahm sat in infinity contemplating all the universes the lesser gods were creating. And Maha-Brahm noticed that all the universes collapse and all the gods die. And Maha-Brahm realized that he would die someday, that he too was impermanent. At that point, Maha-Brahm decided to give up all this chasing of infinity and became the monk again, sitting there meditating. And from that day forward, the monk didn't know whether he was Maha-Brahm playing at being a simple monk, or a simple monk who'd had a psychotic hallucination while meditating and thought he was Maha-Brahm, which is very much like what happened to Zhuangzi, the great Chinese philosopher who dreamed he was a butterfly, and he spent the rest of his life contemplating, am I a man who dreamed he was a butterfly, or am I a butterfly who's now dreaming he's a man? Now that's where virtual reality will put you. That's where acid puts you, and virtual reality will do it, and the government will not make virtual reality illegal because it's 100% acid-free, even though the designers are not, and it's very useful to industry, technology, and medicine, and it's not going to, and the military, of course. The military's got a big investment in virtual reality. So we're all going to go around asking, am I a Martian who somehow got the delusion I'm a human being, or am I a human being who I just had a delusion that I was a Martian a few minutes ago? And then we will be liberated from fixed ideas, which is the goal of psychotherapy and all the Eastern religions, and quantum psychology, which is available from the bookstore upstairs. Next question.
Since you argued a little bit of pre-mastery, what are your thoughts about where we're headed with religion systems?
Well,
A natural disaster, right? You can't get insurance for it.
sometimes I feel very pessimistic about this country. Sometimes I want to go back to Ireland. I want to get the hell out of this country. It seems to me that the war on drugs has become an excuse for the greatest assault on the Bill of Rights in the whole history of the country. One by one, every section of the Bill of Rights is under attack and is collapsing. The First Amendment, freedom of religion, the Supreme Court has overthrown that. They voted 5-4 that only religion only has protection if a large enough portion of the population is following it. Minority religions don't have any rights. That was the peyote decision. But they extended it beyond peyote. It wasn't just the Indians they were screwing that time. They said any religion that's small enough, the state does not have to respect its right to exist. So the First Amendment is gone. Free speech has been gone for a long time. Anything that somebody thinks is obscene can be banned in parts of the country. And doing what Thomas Jefferson did, advocating the overthrow of the government with force and violence is, of course, illegal. Although they still teach children the Declaration of Independence. Any child with more than an inch of forehead eventually figures out, hey, this thing is advocating that they overthrow the government with force and violence, isn't it? Now, the Second Amendment is under assault everywhere. What's the Third Amendment? The Fourth Amendment, unreasonable searches and seizures, is dead. They can bust into anybody's house. Now they can stop buses and go through the buses searching people at random. They can pry into your bladder to find out what's in your urine. The Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination, that's been destroyed. To hold your job, you got to take the risk of incriminating yourself these days.
Third Amendment is quartering troops.
Oh, that's the one well, they don't have to quarter troops with us anymore because they got Blue Thunder to spy on us. They don't need to put troops in our house. They just go over with the helicopter. So there's hardly anything left of the Bill of Rights. In Los Angeles, they've been taking the Bill of Rights around the country. I thought it was like the way they took Lincoln's corpse around the country after John Wilkes Booth shot him. In 1865, Lincoln's body was taken from one city to another before they buried it, so everybody could view him. And now last year they were taking the Bill of Rights around, and I thought it was very similar. We're going to get one last look at this treasured. One last look before they bury it completely. In Los Angeles, the Libertarian Party all went to the one day when it was on exhibit there wearing black armbands in mourning for the death of this great document that once meant so much to us. And Bush, he's nominated 2 judges for the Supreme Court. Now, Bush is against abortion. He's nominated 2 judges in a row who say Souter and Thomas, both of whom claim they don't have an opinion. That means Souter and Thomas are the only people who are not brain dead or in coma. Outside of the coma wards of the hospitals, these are the only 2 people in the country who don't have an opinion. Can anybody believe that? I can't believe it. How could he find 2 people who don't have an opinion on that issue? 2 in a row? This is the most colossal example of lying and hypocrisy we've seen since Adolf Hitler. And yet the people love it, and they're all out there, Sig George, Sig George. And it's really, and suppose we get rid of Bush. Supposing they prove he really was involved in cocaine laundering, as has been charged by the Christic Institute. Then what do we get? What's the alternative? Dan Quayle? Well, yeah, after the next election, we might very well get Stormin' Norman, yeah. And then, on the other hand, there is the cheerful thought, which I have derived from my analysis of information doublings. Every time information doubles, the whole world changes in dramatic ways. And if you look around the world, you see it changing. Look what happened in Soviet Russia. First we had the coup, then the counter-coup, then the Soviet Union broke up. Now the Soviet Union is being reconstituted on a new basis. The KGB is practically dissolved. Statues of Lenin are being knocked over everywhere. They left one statue of Karl Marx up in Leningrad, but they changed the inscription from Workers of the World Unite to Workers of the World Excuse Me. And a Union of South Africa. A Union of South Africa, they're ending apartheid. Slowly, but they're definitely they're releasing political prisoners, Mandela and many others. The European Common Market is gradually turning into a unified United States of Europe. The whole world is changing. So how the hell can the United States be the only part of the world that doesn't change? There are no totally isolated systems. So I cheer up again. The United States is going to change very suddenly and dramatically, just like Russia. And nobody can predict when it will happen. Which way it's going to go, yeah.
All the way to avoid settlement of information is to not have an opinion.
Well, when we get to the point of nanoseconds, doubling, and relating that to, say, Einstein's theory of relativity with traveling faster than the speed of light,